You likely believe that humanity's greatest strength is our adaptability. You look at a map of human migration and think we were naturally equipped to conquer the globe. But biologically speaking, the fact that you are sitting here today, possibly in a temperate climate, is a bizarre statistical anomaly. Evolutionarily, you are a tropical houseplant. You belong in a warm, forgiving African savanna. You have an exceptional cooling system made of jutting sweat glands designed to dump body heat as fast as possible. You are hairless, you have no blubber, your blood does not contain the biological antifreeze found in Arctic fish, and your eyesight in a blizzard is so abysmal that a house cat would pity you. On paper, throwing a human being into the Pleistocene Ice Age is like trying to run the latest high-end video game on a toaster. It is a catastrophic system mismatch. In a deep freeze, a naked human body enters a state of panic within minutes. Blood aggressively pulls away from your extremities to protect your vital organs. Your fingers turn into useless wooden pegs. Your cognitive functions slow down to a dial-up connection speed, and eventually, the biological engine simply seizes up and quits. We are, without exaggeration, one of the worst-equipped large mammals on planet Earth for handling freezing temperatures. Yet, humans didn't just accidentally stumble into winter and survive by sheer dumb luck. They walked straight into the frozen meat grinder of Ice Age Europe and Siberia on purpose. They invaded a landscape that was actively trying to murder them from 4 different directions simultaneously. The first assassin was, obviously, the temperature. The instinctive human answer to cold is fire. But fire is a deeply flawed technology. It is a stationary heater. It only warms the side of your body directly facing the flames, leaving your backside exposed to a wind chill that can snap freeze moisture. The moment you walk away to hunt, forage, or relieve yourself, the ambient air attempts to kill you again. You cannot commute with a bonfire. What humanity needed was portable microclimates. They needed biological spacesuits. For thousands of years, humans simply draped dead animal skins over their shoulders. But a draped hide is basically a badly tailored poncho. It shifts when you sprint. Wind rushes through the massive gaps at the sides and neck. In a truly brutal frost, wearing a blanket isn't survival. It's just choosing a slightly slower method of freezing to death. To turn a dead animal into a survival suit, you need to cut the hide into precise geometric shapes and bind them tightly around the human form, trapping a microscopic layer of metabolic heat against the skin. You need enclosed sleeves, tight seams, and waterproof layering. To achieve this, you need a piece of technology so unimaginably advanced for its time that it rivals the invention of the microchip. You need a bone needle with an eye. Grinding a sliver of animal bone until it is paper-thin without snapping it, and then drilling a microscopic hole through the base just large enough to thread dried animal sinew through, is an act of engineering precision. Archaeologists have pulled these needles out of the dirt dating back over 40,000 years. With this tiny, fragile tool, our ancestors hacked their own biology. They stitched together multi-layered garments with the fur turned inward. The needle allowed humans to step away from the fire and walk into a blizzard entirely encased in their own personal, tropical atmosphere. But a spacesuit only works when you are moving. Eventually, the sun sets, the temperature plummets to a level that physics almost resents, and you must sleep. This introduces the housing crisis of the Paleolithic era. Everyone assumes ancient humans just walked into caves. But caves are geological lottery tickets. A dry, structurally sound cave with good ventilation and a defensible entrance is incredibly rare. If you found one, a 2-ton cave bear or a pack of dire wolves probably already claimed the lease. You could not rely on natural real estate, you had to manufacture it. Imagine finding yourself on the freezing plains of what is now Ukraine 15,000 years ago. There is no timber. The ground is frozen solid. Your only building material is the graveyard of the local megafauna. So, you become a necromancer of architecture. In places like Maziric, archaeologists have uncovered complex, dome-shaped houses built entirely out of mammoth bones. These were not flimsy pup tents. They were meticulously engineered fortresses requiring the remains of dozens of massive elephants. Skulls and interlocking jawbones were stacked like morbid bricks to form the foundation. Massive, spiraling tusks were arched and locked together to frame the roof. But a house made of rib cages is drafty. Every gap between those bones is a highway for freezing air. So, they applied layers of ancient insulation. They stretched heavy skins over the internal framework, plastered the outside with sod and mud, and ironically, packed thick layers of snow against the exterior walls. Snow, because it traps millions of tiny air pockets, is a phenomenal thermal insulator. Layer by layer, they sealed off the outside world. Inside these bone domes, with a hearth fire burning, humans engineered an artificial summer. But sitting in a warm room creates a terrifying new vulnerability. You are now anchored. You have to constantly feed the fire, which means you cannot wander far. And winter is the season where the planet simply stops producing calories. The vegetation dies, the berries vanish under ice. The prey animals either migrate away, burrow deep into the mud, or grow as starving and desperate as you are. This brings us to the third assassin, starvation. Winter turns survival into a brutal math equation. You must acquire and store enough fuel in the autumn to bridge a massive gap of zero income. Our ancestors solved this by turning the environment itself into a technological asset. The frozen earth that made digging impossible became a walk-in freezer. They dug deep pits into the permafrost, effectively caching massive meat hulls at a stable, freezing temperature where bacteria couldn't cause rot. For meat kept above ground, they utilized the smoke of their fires to draw out the moisture, creating dried rations that could last for months. However, lean meat is a trap. If you eat nothing but lean rabbit or deer meat in a freezing environment, your body will expend more energy digesting it than it receives, a cruel paradox known as protein poisoning. What humans needed was high-octane biological fuel. They needed fat. In the Ice Age, animal fat was weapon-grade uranium. It is the most calorie-dense substance available. Ancient humans meticulously extracted every ounce of marrow from bones, boiled down fatty tissues to create rendered tallow, and mixed it with dried meat to create pemmican, a dense, portable energy bar that could keep a hunter alive in a blizzard. And they weren't just eating fat, their bodies were learning to weaponize it internally. As humans pushed deeper into the cold, evolution made a microscopic tweak. We developed higher concentrations of brown adipose tissue, or brown fat. Unlike regular white fat, which just sits there storing excess calories, brown fat is highly active. It is packed with iron-rich mitochondria that literally burn calories to generate pure heat. Your ancestors were not just surviving the cold. Their bodies were frantically mutating into biofurnaces to keep the engine running. You have fire, you have a suit of armor made of skins, you have a house made of mammoths, and you have a stockpile of rendered fat. You have defeated the physical cold. But winter has one final weapon, and it is arguably the most dangerous because it doesn't attack your body. It attacks your mind, the darkness. If you travel far enough north, the winter sun barely clears the horizon. You are looking at 15 to 16 hours of absolute, crushing darkness every single day. Modern medicine has a name for what happens to the human brain when it is deprived of sunlight and trapped in an enclosed space. Seasonal affective disorder and cabin fever. Serotonin levels crash. Lethargy sets in, paranoia and severe depression take root. Now imagine experiencing that psychological collapse while crammed into a smoky, 15-foot bone hut with 10 other people who smell like wet dog and rancid fat, while listening to the wind scream outside for months straight. The isolation is enough to fracture the human psyche. But this is where humanity pulled off its most magnificent trick. They didn't just endure the darkness, they exploited it. Those agonizingly long nights became the greatest incubator of human advancement. Because they couldn't go outside, the long night became a mandatory workshop. Sitting shoulder to shoulder around a flickering hearth, humans engaged in relentless microscopic labor. They chipped finer, sharper flint blades. They carved delicate fishhooks. They repaired their hunting gear. They meticulously sewed next year's clothing. They weren't just waiting for spring. They were arming themselves for it. More importantly, they talked. To keep the madness at bay, to prevent the psychological collapse of the tribe, they used their voices. The elders passed down the geographical maps of the landscape purely through memory. They cataloged which plants healed and which killed, and they told stories. The same myths, the same exaggerated heroics, repeated night after night. This wasn't just entertainment, it was a psychological survival mechanism. Shared mythology forged a social glue so strong that individuals became willing to sacrifice themselves for the good of the group. The campfire in the dead of winter is the birthplace of human culture, religion, and the very concept of a shared identity. We fought off the darkness of the sky by building a universe inside our own heads. Winter didn't just fail to kill us, it forged us. The relentless threat of freezing forced us to master engineering and tailoring. The starvation pushed us to invent chemistry and food preservation. The endless, maddening dark forced us to develop complex language and culture to stay sane. Every technology that eventually allowed humanity to spread to every corner of this planet, to build cities and launch rockets, has its roots in a group of shivering apes trying to outsmart a blizzard. Right now, you are sitting in a room where the temperature is tightly regulated by a thermostat. If the air drops by 2 degrees, a hidden machine kicks on and throws warm air at you. You complain that it gets dark at 5 p.m. You get annoyed when you have to scrape a thin layer of frost off your windshield. You open a refrigerator and stare at food flown in from 3 different continents, completely oblivious to the fact that you are standing on the peak of a mountain of human suffering and ingenuity. You don't survive winter anymore. You treat it like a minor inconvenience, and that is exactly how it should be. Because tens of thousands of years ago, your ancestors stared down a season that was designed to erase them from existence, and they defeated it one bone needle, one mammoth tusk, and one story at a time so that you would never have to.